So I started Spectacular Optical in 2014 as a independent book publishing company. And so it was kind of on a hobby basis, where I would publish film history books, pop culture books. And in 2026, I incorporated Spectacular Optical and decided that I wanted to actually invest more in increasing the slate of books that I was doing, but also to add a film distribution branch to the company. It is going to be a small, deliberately released slate of films, and part of that is just the practicalities of a lot of the films that I'll be releasing will be films that haven't been released in North America for decades, and we're having to go back to the original film elements, do new scans, new restorations, and that takes time. But also, as somebody who has been a film programmer and a writer about film for several decades now, there were films that had always stuck with me, and films that I had programmed that I didn't see popping up on home video. And many people know me more for my work in genre, but a lot of my inspirations come from a broad cross-section of multidisciplinary work. And so I'm very aesthetic driven. I'm very interested in landscape and design, music and counterculture, experimental genre films that sort of really push the boundaries of what a traditional audience for genre films expects or even wants.
50 years happiness. Helen's 50 years. 150 school terms, not including holidays. Will you love me that long? I don't think you will. Of course. I've loved you a whole week already, haven't I?
The big accomplishment for me, I can probably retire just after this, is finding the North American rights to Melody. Waris Hussein's film from 1971. This has been my white whale for almost 2 decades. And even though the film was a hit in Japan and it is on Blu-ray in the UK, it just has not been released in North America since like the days of Select-O-Vision, so it hasn't had a proper disc release. It's got the 2 stars from Oliver, Mark Lester, and Jack Wilde, who is known from HR Pufnstuf, the TV show. And it's this puppy love story. It is truly the most adorable movie ever made. And it's basically the puppy love story that was one of the primary influences for Wes Anderson's Moonrise Kingdom. So this whole idea of 2 children that want to run away and get married basically comes from this movie, from Melody. But I have seen even, the faces of hardened horror fans just like beaming at the overload of cuteness in this film. The kids are very precocious. It's written by Alan Parker, who went on to do Bugsy Malone, Fame, and also movies like Angel Heart and Mississippi Burning, and Pink Floyd The Wall. So it's got a very strong musical component.
But you and I, our love will never die.
It's got music by the Bee Gees. This is like Odessa era Bee Gees, so it's kind of the Baroque pop period of the Bee Gees. And Melody will actually be released as a partnership between Spectacular Optical and Severin Kids. So Severin Films Kids label, we are actually both investing in the restoration of this film to get it out together. So it'll be co-branded for both of our labels. But the first one actually out of the gate, the first film that Spectacular Optical is going to be releasing is actually a documentary by BAFTA award-winning documentarian named Christopher Morris, and the film is called A Year in a Field. And so what A Year in a Field is literally a year in the life of a Cornish field, and specifically a 4,000-year-old standing stone that is in the middle of that field.
The farmer calls the field Longstone Field. The Cornish for standing stone is Menhir, meaning Longstone. Boscawen Ross is an 8-foot-tall pillar of biotite mica granite. It was carved by an alien civilization, not from outer space, but out of time.
It was filmed from winter solstice 2021 through to winter solstice of 2022. So it was sort of during the pandemic era when the world had been sort of quieted. And so it is actually a remarkable film. And it started off as a very unambitious project where Chris was just documenting this standing stone every day with no real intention of what he was going to do with this material. It just became apparent that what he had was something pretty special. It's also the kind of film you could get really high and watch because it's a lot of music, amazing cinematography. If you like movies like Koyaanisqatsi and stuff like that, then this is a film for you. But also has a very important environmental message at its heart.
We are engaged in the undoing of the world as we know it. Announcements are made. Will-o'-the-wisp initiatives that nibble at the edges and pledges that shift the blame for inaction down the line a little further.
And then another film, a film that is currently being scanned, the film elements are being scanned as we speak, is Burt Delling's 1975 Australian independent film called Pure Shit, also called Pure S for people who didn't want to swear on the movie poster.
No fucking way.
But this is a day in the life of Melbourne junkies who are driving around. It's sort of a travelogue through Melbourne as they go trying to find drugs. And it's full of people who were sort of active in the sort of theater world in Melbourne. So people like Phil Motherwell, Gary Waddell, both of whom would later show up in the Australian prison film Stir, which I also really love. So it was kind of like early years of Australian independent film. And it's got, all these local bands providing the music, and you do see some harsh imagery in the film, but it's also very funny and very endearing. And, the theater when it premiered was rated, and it was banned in Australia. And it's now, of course, considered a beloved film in Australia and a cult classic. It also has a small role by Helen Garner playing a speed freak.
But listen, mate, don't cut out the spy hole like that. Could have been the pigs. What's your name?
Jerry.
Helen Garner went on to write Monkey Grip, which was also made into a film and was semi-autobiographical, and she's a celebrated author. But it was like a lot of sort of creatives from the Melbourne arts, visual arts, music, theater scenes collaborating on this film. And I'm really glad to be releasing it because to me, it's like, this is a really important film in Australian film history. And it's kind of amazing that it has not come out in North America because it's such, I lived in Australia for a couple of years and it's such a touchstone over there.
What the fuck are you doing, Lou?
I'm making out like I'm the chemist. Then people will think the shop's open. Don't worry, mate, it'll be cool, you watch.
And another film is Andrew Horn's Doomed Love. And so this is being released for the first time since VHS.
I think it's good.
Yes, it is good.
It was a film made in New York in 1984. Andrew Horn went on to make the documentary The Nomi Song about Klaus Nomi, which is great. But this film has all two-dimensional sets, So if you've ever seen something like Richard Elfman's Forbidden Zone, where you've got cut out and painted flat sets, this is a similar aesthetic. And it stars Bill Rice, who is like an avant-garde staple from films like Decoder and Vortex, the Scott and Beth B film. Very happy to be a part of bringing that film back out into the world again. It also has a score by Evan Lurie of the Lounge Lizards. It's written by Jim Noy, who's like experimental playwright. Just again, another sort of hybrid, multidisciplinary film with a lot of people from different creative practices working together.
I know what you've been told. Forget it. Believe me. Forget it.
I've also been working with the BFI on getting a couple of their films out, one of which is Paul Wright's 2017 documentary Arcadia. It was a film that I found as I was just finishing my documentary Woodlands, Darkened Days, Bewitched, because a lot of the sort of archival footage that I was using in my film of different sort of British folk practices and things, some of that same footage was in Paul Wright's film. Basically, when I saw it, I almost thought, what is the point of me making my film? Because this is such a great film. It has a lot of crossover with Woodlands, Darkened Days, Bewitched, a ton of amazing footage. It is an entirely archival film, so it is made all out of clips from the British Film Institute's archives of over 100 years of film history. It's like a feature-length video essay that it sort of explores the magical nature of the British countryside and British customs.
Think about yourself now. Look after yourself. Grab everything you can. Look after yourself. It is getting late.
And the other film that I'm getting from the BFI is Don Levy's 1967 film Herostratus. And it stars Michael Gothard, who plays Father Barre in The Devils. He is, an artist who's planning to commit suicide by throwing himself off of a building because he wants to make a big media spectacle out of it. And so it's basically this kind of countdown as he's like trying to get attention for this spectacle that he may or may not go through with.
What kind of reason do you expect a guy to have for committing suicide, other than ones I gave you? That it stinks?
Well, first of all, they're far too personal. They're negative. We've got to give you something positive, something altruistic and idealistic.
The film is full of surreal imagery and all this sort of emotional torture that he's going through. It's got a very early performance by Helen Mirren, and it's just full of bizarre imagery related to, film screening and meat, which was a really common aesthetic in this era of film, late 60s, early 70s, avant-garde films and experimental films. You see a lot of meat images and viscera images. This was a period when a lot of people were experimenting with the aesthetics of disgust. It's a very psychedelic film. I love psychedelic films. I love psychedelia in general. I am not a drug taker, but I love psychedelic music and psychedelic film.
What we need to do is to present you with a clear, positive image. A good selling image for the general public.
Yes, a sort of hero image.
What do you think I am, a box of detergent or something?
So yes, so this is the first slate of Spectacular Optical. It's going to keep me pretty busy for the next few years. It's an exciting new chapter.